everyone. It's so nice to see you. I am Natasha Feinberg, and I have co-authored 2 books with Susan Zoll here that discuss literacy and literacy instruction in the Montessori classroom. I currently have my work primarily in public school situations, and I teach at the college level for beginning literacy skills. And I was excited to take part in this discussion because to me, AI is a topic that joins us all together as educators. Because whether you are a Montessori teacher, whether you're teaching in a public school setting, whether you're teaching higher ed, or whether you're teaching those emerging readers, this is something that is dear to our hearts because it's something we have to address now. In fact, this morning, my husband shared a New York Times article that came out that's entitled, "AI is Fueling a Poverty of Imagination. Here's How We Can Fix It." And of course, I was like, I need to read this article. I'm going to be on this panel. And, I think that when we see a catchy title like that with the poverty of imagination, it goes to our fears because we want to be instilling that imaginative side in our students. As I read this article, though, I went, oh, okay, big sigh of relief. Article, it says, technology is on a continuum. And we go by what strong research tells us. And it even acknowledges here, foundational literacy begins with the pencil in hand, begins with that connection. This article caught me on that moment of, oh, I'm afraid of losing that imagination. And then it went back to reassure me that we all, as educators here, want our students to succeed in the world and to be aware of AI and competent users, but to keep all those foundational pieces that we know are so important. And coming from more of that public school world here, all of the teachers feel the same. There are 2 main fears that I just want to throw out there that keep returning for myself. One is that I have this underlying fear I'm not smart enough to figure out what AI is all about. And I share that with you. I consider myself a well-educated person, but boy, that fear does crop up. My second fear is that, am I too tired keeping up with everything to keep up with AI too? But when I see us coming together like that, my hope is that we give each other energy to focus on that.
Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Katie Keller-Wood. I'm so happy to be here. I see a number of familiar names and faces. And so, yeah, I was delighted and grateful to be invited by Kate and the organizers of this panel to talk through AI. So my work in Montessori is I am the director of CM-STEP, the Cincinnati Montessori Secondary Teacher Education Program, which means most people think I live in Ohio, but I don't. I live in Richmond, Virginia, and I teach at the University of Virginia and a handful of other universities as well. And my first book is out next month. Called Alignment, a Montessori approach to reimagining work-life balance. And so I'm just delighted to be here today. We know that AI is shaping our world, shaping how we work, shaping how we learn, how we think about what we contribute. And yet I think that it is our very Montessori essence that is going to guide us through this moment, right? So when I talk to people, who don't know anything about Montessori, I'm sure you all have the same thing, right? What is Montessori? What does that mean? To me, I like to boil it down. I think that Montessori is about helping every human reach their fullest human potential, right? Become who they are meant to be in our world. And so my book is also about bringing that lens, especially around our work, to the world of adult work, to adult development, who we are as adults as we move through the world. And moving beyond kind of a duality between work and life, but to a more holistic approach, just like we offer to the students in our classrooms. So to me, when we think about, what artificial intelligence is going to do, what it's going to mean for our work, for our learning, I think it really comes back to who we are as humans, right? And so, if Montessori education is about helping promote the full human thriving of everyone, every child, every adolescent, every adult, sometimes we forget the adults in our communities, into being who they are meant to be and the fullest expression of themselves and their humanity, then AI is just another tool. And so it's not just what can we do with the tools, but who are we becoming as we use them, right? So what human elements do we most need to nurture, and how do we move that forward? And I think that that's the gift that Montessori education brings to the current moment. That we create containers in our classrooms to promote the thriving of our young children, of our adolescents, and we can create containers to promote adult thriving in our workplaces, in our organizations, in our world. And so, Montessori education has long been that vehicle for a more peaceful, more just, more equitable world that works for everyone. And I think that in this time of accelerated change, there's many things we don't know, but I think we can cling to those elements that we do know. We do know about humanity. We do know how to support children. We do know that we can create these kinds of contexts. And so my hope is that we continue to do that important work and that we create those contexts for our children and our adolescents as we have always done. And that we also create those contexts for ourselves and for other adults, right, in our workplaces and in our organizations. So I'm happy to be on the call today.
Hi, everyone. Lovely to see everyone here. My name is Sarah Kennedy-Berge, and I'm an American but living over in Norway. So this is my evening. It's nice to join you from over here. Yeah, it's really interesting to be able to be part of this panel and to discuss what we were really thinking of is that the fear and the loss, but not to dwell on that fear, really to look into the future. And I think this will be a great conversation, a really good moment to let out our fears and to discuss what is it that we are afraid of letting go, perhaps. And that's really what my work has been, looking into the use of creative technologies in a Montessori context and how we can get that into the classroom. So I work with adults, but I've been doing a lot of research with schools to be working with children in the classroom to really look at how do we use it. And I'm a very cautious person when it comes to technology. As much as I love it, I am very cautious of it, and I will not be the first person to be jumping on a bandwagon of at any time. But I think what we are fearing perhaps is that joy that we see when the children are working with the materials, or when you're telling a really great story and it comes out, and the interest or the concentration is lost, and it becomes the screen, that we're scared that the screen is going to take over. And so I think that rather than looking at it, we can have that fear, but at least to acknowledge the fear, but not be driven by that fear. And so when we're looking at how can our Montessori principles help us to guide us into the future, like Katie said, we don't know what the future is bringing. We really don't know, but we have this growth mindset that will help us. And so we can become or we are practicing and constantly preparing ourselves as adults. We can look to how we can also stay curious and adapt, and also to stay grounded in the ethical use of these technologies, that we're not pulled away by the fads and the things that are happening, but we can be aware. And I always think about, what Montessori says about observing and really to look at what is this thing, this tool, this item that we are looking to bring into our classroom, or our students, whatever the age, will be using, and are they going to be using it for cheating, or how can we use it? And really to be thinking of it as just another tool for their curiosity and their creation. So I think to say that my work would be now standing sort of in between the caution and the possibility, what we can do with it, but holding on to that essence of of the Montessori principles, and then carefully opening the door, mindfully opening that door into the future to what we can use this AI moment for, and how it will develop in the future with our students. So looking forward to hearing more from everyone.
You all, and yes, as Katie said, good to see some names we recognize here. Kate broached this as, to me, what I believe is a provocative line of questioning. So I think that it's only right that we kind of raise more provocative thinking in this topic. So I'm not here to represent a hard no to AI. To be honest, I don't have enough information to make a final determination. But I will strongly represent a definitive, let's be really thoughtful as we move forward. Teaching is already difficult. So many of you on this call already know that. For those outside of Montessori, or even Montessorians in publicly funded classrooms, we're beholden to new theories, new curricula, and now to integrate AI before educators and even the greater field of education have a true possible unintended consequences. And it makes the entire field of education, in my mind, a laboratory, which then makes me wonder, what does that make us? As a Montessori educator, I think about the years we devote to helping our students learn to learn. It's our job, right? As Montessorians, we nurture human development, physical, cognitive, and what we're labeling as character development in our new book that will be out next year. So what are some ways that AI might be used to help children learn and to develop to their full human potential? That question leads me to, where might AI be helpful? David Stewart, who writes about super agers, recently spoke about 3 pillars of insight: knowledge, wisdom, and lucidity. Knowledge is the accumulation of information and experiences. Wisdom is the insight to apply knowledge with purpose and timing. And then lucidity, this is where it takes it one step further. It's the ability to draw from our knowledge and our experiences, though not necessarily information that's just given to us, to create new thinking. This new thinking is important when we think about innovations. And unfortunately, as humans, we can get stuck in rigid patterns, right? Just because I have certain knowledge or learning doesn't mean that I can move on to the next step, to a creative application of my thinking, right? That's where lucidity comes in. And age has nothing to do with it, or experience. It demands something more of us to get to that point. So growth depends on consciously breaking free from old habits and staying curious and present. Reflection, mindfulness, curiosity, and genuine interest are the Jedi skills of lucidity, of intelligence. Is its intentional use to apply our knowledge and experiences to then break free of our human tendency of rigid patterns of thinking. So it's not the first layer of learning. In fact, it may not be the after 20 layers of learning. But perhaps one use of AI is its application after a certain level of understanding has been achieved by the children or by us, so we can support further innovative thinking and learning. And I'll just close out with one piece that I had read recently, and I think it applies here. So Gandhi wrote what he called 7 social sins that can destroy a society from within. We don't have to worry about a society from outside of us destroying our society. It's something that can happen from within. When there are politics without principles, wealth without work, commerce without morality, pleasure without conscience, and worship without sacrifice. When we choose to move forward in the use of AI with our children, I think we need to keep character deeply entwined with education. This was part of Dr. Montessori's vision of a new world after all the destruction experienced during World War II. Part of our new book that looks at Montessori education from birth through adolescence. And we also have to keep a partnership with science and humanity. Who are we as people? Just as Sarah was saying, what do we hope for our children? And in what ways can tools like AI be used to reach these objectives? Anything short of these deep considerations will be an injustice to our children.
What I will say, in 2007-ish, when I started my master's program, I was really focused on the way that childhood was impacted by technology. And that's when I started looking at what the American Academy of Pediatrics said, the World Health Organization, the CDC, the National Institute of Health. And I made it it was a special area of interest of mine for about 5 or 6 years, looking at how interacting with technology impacted children's development. And the messaging has been really consistent. Technology has changed at as we all know, just a few years ago. Most of us did not know this. But brains have not changed, and the ways that brains developed has not changed. And so while I see and have always said in my writing on that topic that technology is great for a tool, we know that it can be life-changing. That's just not deniable, that technology can be life-changing, and that it is life-changing, and that it allows people who would otherwise be isolated and unable to connect to the people and communities that they live in or live near, or the people that they wouldn't have the opportunity to organize with otherwise, which is great. It does not offer those same benefits when compared to the ability to go out and connect with people, human people in the outdoor world, in the natural environment. And there is no substitute for that. If I told all of you that, guess what? I am taking you on a vacation. We are going to a beach. Pensacola, my hometown. I've been to beaches literally all over the world. And I'm sorry, there is not a better beach than Perdido Key or Navarre Beach. There's just not. And we're going to go there. And then if I walked you into the room where we looked at a VR screen, that is not the same. And all of the things that are missing from that experience are the things that make us human. Those are the things that make us human, and they're the things you can't substitute. I do not have a sense of smell. And I remember what it's like to have a sense of smell, but I do not have a sense of smell. Virtual reality and AI experiences, to me, are missing the senses and the substitute. The question that I talked about, that I don't know if you've read those yet, sorry. How do we help people understand that knowing about things is not the same as experiencing things? And so while I do believe that there are ways that AI can be used to benefit people, obviously, without question, we have to make sure that the way that people are built, the way that children are built, the way their brains are built, stays as close to the way that brains optimally develop as possible. And that is the tricky part. You know, my sister is also a Montessori teacher. So is my husband. So is my daughter, by the way. And my sister teaches elementary, and they really have kind of grappled with this idea because they are a Montessori school and they try to keep screens to, limited, tech as a tool, all those things. And so she has found ways where elementary people upper elementary, can put in their writing and see what they didn't do well, right? Because it only has what you give it, which that is a whole other conversation that we could have, that one little statement. But it's something that we need to remember with children. And I think that while people need to know how to use technology, we all know that the technology that our children will be using is not developed yet. So it is a misnomer it's a misunderstanding of how technology works for us to think that that is necessary, in my opinion. And what we can do are provide opportunities where children have the kinds of brains where they can learn things about technology and leverage it without missing out on these key components that make us humans, that can have human experiences that no machine can replicate. I don't know I'm going to be done there, but thank you for letting me say that. I appreciate it.
so Susan Macklin Stevenson was invited, and she sends her love to everybody. So the link at the beginning of the chat is also to her work. Yeah, so what everybody just said, and what I would say is we are gatekeepers to physical reality. No kidding. We're the gatekeepers, Montessorians. And if we're not immersing our children in the most real of reality, the most exotic, rich, wonderful experiences back to our senses, literally fully back to our senses, that's our job, back to our senses. Because then we also have to do that for ourselves. We have to bring ourselves back to our senses. And if we haven't gone outside and stood bare feet on the ground, and if we haven't hugged a tree, and if we haven't tasted delicious fruit and really focused on the taste of chocolate and not just the consumption of chocolate, like things like that. But if we are not doing that, we cannot remember to just constantly expose our children to these rich sensorial experiences. So again, on this amazing call right now are several people from the think tank. So the American Montessori Society created the Innovation Fellowship think tank. Susan Zoll was in the group. There are many people in this meeting right now who are in the think tank. And what was happening is that we were looking at the things that people, all of the pain points for Montessorians, like teacher retention and training, and everybody's pain points. We were trying to really honor the voices, honor your voices. And what the technology group ended up with is the innovation labs from this last event in Denver. But also, I've been studying mapping the existing Montessori materials as they are in the classroom without you moving them an inch. The Montessori materials, mapping them onto AI competencies. So taking all the AI competencies from reports that Jana mentioned, taking those and just saying, well, if we're talking about pattern recognition, that would be the pink tower. If we're talking about sequencing, pink tower. If we're talking about algorithmic thinking, spatial recognition. So the words, the verbiage of the AI technology that's just the only thing missing. And so in the document that I created, what I showed is that if you actually mapped each classroom's physical materials, they're already teaching competencies for the age of AI. So if we want to start anywhere, is to understand who we actually are and what we're already doing. And I think once we realize that, and I know you're sitting there going, yeah, well, we knew Montessori would be the answer. Well, it really is, but it's way beyond, it's mind-blowingly way beyond what we could imagine. So that's the mapping book, and which again many people know on this call. And I think that my main communication is, yes, we need to have conversations for AI, but only after we realize the languaging and what the language is we need. And then if we're going to dip a toe in the water, it would be to create AI agents. And I know that sounds weird and scary, but it means that you're in control of the user interface, you're in control of the sources that go into your AI. It's very simple, and the children are creators and not users. And then the other piece, in every single classroom, there are makerspace boxes with materials, so the children are getting their hands on, so they're building their sensorial experience. And so even that those practical life shelves, they go from the screwdriver material in early childhood straight into a little birdhouse kit they can put together with screws, which goes straight into the makerspace where they can create something.
I'm just struck by the remarks he made about sensorial experience and the emphasis on the continuing of preparing of the adults. So I'm a Montessori parent, I'm a research librarian, I don't work in the classroom, but I do spend time in my son's Montessori school, and the work that I'm doing as a prepared adult in his life is doing cold plunges, is putting my feet on the earth. And this is lifting me up in ways that I had not fathomed. And realizing that the lack of connection with nature and the impact it's had on my health, I think that framing that for me, I always return to Montessori principles and concepts to help me understand this perplexing and chaotic world. And so things like understanding my role as a prepared adult and and how that is maintenance work. And so as a librarian and an archivist, I think a lot about maintenance. There's a ton of innovation happening, and innovation is exhausting and it is frightful. And I think we need to continue pairing that with maintenance thinking. And how do we maintain it? And Montessori, is just an exemplar of maintenance. We live and breathe maintenance culture in Montessori. We continue experimenting and observing the children, but that's maintaining the ethos of Montessori. And so I think that extends to maintenance of self. And that, I think, reflects preparation of the, spiritual preparation of the adult, which for me, it just personally is cold plunges. It is taking care of my business and pacing myself and this and that. So I think there's a lot of takeaways, and seeing AI as a tool and even framing it within Montessori concepts, like as you spoke to, it can be part of a prepared environment, prepared by a prepared adult. And so it's usage, it's utilizing all of the Montessori principles and knowledge that have been passed on and that we've, so thank you for this space.
Yes, I did have a question about the statement that you made about classrooms creating your own AI agents and children and set parameters around it. Are you saying that children would then build prototypes through the AI and have the materials there in class to work on?
Or, it's so funny. You made me remember something. I'll answer the question, but also you can do cooperative games with one person being the user, I'm the user of the AI, and then the rest of the students in the classroom being the AI. And the user says, oh, okay, I need a story about a sentence about a dog. And then everybody gets beavers away and they write their sentences. And so you could make everything cooperative games. And there are many platforms. There's one's called Chatbase. And on Chatbase, you just go on, you create your logo. So you create a little logo. And then you have to work out what a user interface is. Well, how do you want someone to be greeted on your AI? How do you want it to respond? What is its first sentence? So you're actually teaching social emotional learning in creating a user interface. And then the sources, but it's foundationally ChatGPT-4, I think, is the foundational core of Chatbase. But it won't ask questions about specifics if you don't put them in. So I created one for Montessori, but I didn't just end with Montessori. I added Mother Earth, anything I could find on indigenous wisdom, anything I could find on the history of AI. And I went broad. There were 300 documents just to get what I wanted. So the students in the classroom, especially those elementary students, they could go, okay, I'm going to create sources to make sure it speaks the way I want it to speak and talks about the things I want it to talk about. So it's really a really good thinking about research. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I do have one other question. When you talked about mapping out the Montessori environment, and matching that with the learning standards and what AI, is that research available for?
Yeah, if you click on my LinkedIn, when you go through my LinkedIn, and then it should take you to After Alpha, which is my Substack. I think I call that my website at the moment because I haven't got a website. So go in there and it's free. You just download it. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
These are literally our classrooms, our early childhood classrooms, toddler classrooms, like specifically, are going to be the only tech-free spaces in their lives. Some of you who know my work on the schedule of the day, Montessori schedule of the day, the entire second half of the day was outside. The entire second, everything after lunch is outside in various forms of directed play or free play, exposure with nature. And so if we're looking to time-tested practices that also correspond to what research shows us, then all we have to do is continue to lean into that and not succumb to the shiny objects. And not only will that help them build their brains at that age, it will set them up to be able to think critically about the tech tools that they will encounter later. That's my answer to that question.
Yeah.
Coming in from the elementary side of things, and maybe also with the older students. I think I think we need to define a little bit also about what technology, what goes under the term technology. AI obviously is what we're discussing today, but I think there are so many things that we do. Kate, you've just gone through a whole list of, with the mapping of what we already do that is training them towards technology. But I think the shiny screen thing, that Jan, I completely agree on that one, especially with the younger ones. But if we don't show and model and discuss and reflect with our elementary and adolescent students on the use of it, if we are not reflecting on ourselves on how we are using it and how we model it in every other situation, we are letting them down, quite honestly. We're not doing our job as guides in this space, because we need to 100% be out there. We need to be cultivating this human connection. There's no replacement for that. We need each other. We need to be together in this space. However, together as that community that we're building, we can discuss, we can bring out what kind of technology should we be using, can we be using, is it equitable? How is it in a broader sense? Is it, where's the social justice in this? Who is it fair? Can we all use it? And so if we say that we are completely not having the technology in the classroom, that's not going to be as it's not going to prepare them for life, for where they're going everywhere else in their life. So I think it's really important that we have these discussions, this human connection when we have it, where we can be working with the tools, but leave them then, and we're out in nature, and we're out doing these things where we don't always need the tools, but we have them when we need them, for both for exploration and for creative expression, to give back our learning. But even in the early childhood environments, there are things that we can be doing that will support later use of screens and the shiny objects. But I think it's really important, because we might be the only space where they won't have it, that we can use that opportunity in a prepared and safe environment to help them navigate these tools that they are meeting everywhere else in life. So I would just put that out there as well.
Kate, I am working with TIES, and we are, which is a Montessori integrative learning master's program. And a lot of my work recently has brought in this idea of entangled education. And my question is actually related very much to this as well. And that is that how might educators who are committed to the Montessori mission in creating conditions for this new human who deeply feels interconnected, and we navigate this paradox of how AI has this massive resource use, where expanding consumption of computational power and data stands in tension with this ideal of this sustainable, harmonious earth. And I continue to question, and I'm very much interested in expanding conversations around that as well with our community.
What Sarah said, it really resonated with me. I've been doing this project called Screen Time Stewardship. So I think it's that word of stewardship has been really big for me, especially like as we're educating children and students, thinking about how they want to engage, because I don't think not engaging is going to be an option in their future. So how do they want to engage? What are the environmental implications? That's a whole nother piece. What are the imaginative or intellectual capacities? So just kind of creating our own pathways. And I love some of the thoughts and suggestions that were shared here today so far, but stewardship has been what's come up for me a lot.
grappling is part of the concept of flow, of normalization of that experience. Grappling is that meeting that challenge. So a task or a learning experience that challenges us. And so I that resonate, and I think that having these meta conversations with children as a mother of a lower L child around sort of metacognitive conversations to understand how we learn, and also extending that, and you've written about this, Kate, but what Tammy spoke to you about the environmental impacts, ethical environmental stewardship, our carbon footprint in AI use, that all aligns with the developmental needs of the elementary and adolescent, these planes. And so I think I see this, I'm living this every day with my own child. And so this is, I appreciate the framing, especially around stewardship, because I think that our children are inheriting this world. And as Tammy spoke to, this is part of their cosmic work. And so we are, sort of obliged to pay attention to it and invite that conversation.
That's also a reminder, so it's always very present to me that the children born now, so there's some great books. So Dr. Corey C. Miller wrote about Gen Z. They're the ones that will send you the sick emoji to say they're not coming into work. Apologies if you're a Gen Zer. And then Gen Alpha, the children in the schools now, and the top two priorities, love and loyalty. And you go, hold it, where's your fast cars and your big houses and your, get to the top of the tree? Oh, no, just love and loyalty. That was that top two priorities. That was global. She did her research globally. And then Mark McCrindle has written books on Gen Alpha and said they've created their own language. I mean, whole conversations in the Gen Alpha language. So there's a piece of them wants to retain control. You won't be in every conversation because you won't understand what we're saying. That's brilliance. But now we've got after Alpha, which I thought I'd talk about, which is who are they going to be? I mean, it's so exciting. I mean, I think it's wildly exciting, the future, but we just need to ask them, what tools do you need? What do you need next? Where do you want to go? What do you want to learn? Keep asking.
To just make a comment also on the grapple. And I think that struggling to find out, to discover is so essential in the learning process. And I think that is another one of my own fears, just to name it, is the ease of, I just go into AI and I get the answer and I move on. There's there's very little time between I have a question and I go to Google it, which it used to be Google, but I had to sort through some sources maybe. But now I think if we're thinking about just the Montessori principle of repetition, trying to get there, the whole making mistakes is a fun thing, we're learning through our mistakes, and to grapple, to really that struggle. And we know it from screens for the last 20 something plus years, actually, is that the instant gratification, what happens when we don't use time and allow time to develop where we're going. And also that leads us to that satisfaction when we finally have struggled through and gotten our answer, that sticks with us also. So I think that is a really important thing to bring into our classrooms, to remember, and also to work with the children about, that's not the first thing we go to. We're not just straight going into AI, getting an answer, and do I even verify said answer, but how, let's get it. I love, Kate, your idea of using each other as the bot, as the, I have this question, now let's all grapple with this concept. Let's all come up with some suggestions as co-creators, real co-creators, not C0 creators, but to get that human part of what it means for us to learn, what really is a learning process versus just, I just want answers or the correct answer, what someone might deem a correct answer. Yeah.
And Sarah, that strikes me as such an opportunity, right? So returning to the idea of what is it to learn? What does it mean to learn? How do we want to learn? All brains work a little bit differently, right? All of us come with our unique talents. All of us come with our unique interests. So, how do we use this tool? But what is learning? What does learning actually look like? Learning isn't just being able to spit out an answer, right? And so I think that, there's what I just really come back to too is that I feel like this age is also an age of opportunity of, okay, if we have this artificial intelligence and we have this thing that can mimic what we used to think only humans could do, right? We thought only humans could do some of these things. So now a machine can do some of these things. So it's a returning to what is human, what is learning, what are relationships, what is real. And I just want to echo, Bodine, I'm not sure if I'm saying your name correctly, but I really appreciate what you brought on about the prepared adult, because so much of what my work is focusing on right now also is just about our adult development, right? So here's this tool that we as adults are also modeling, are also thinking about how does it change our work? And what is our work, right? So how are we showing up? How are we creating contexts for ourselves and for others to thrive? Yes, the students in our care, but also ourselves as whole human beings. So I just wanted to echo and appreciate that point.
Sorry, kind of like what we already just said, like losing that imagination or that ability to grapple. And kind of building off of that, one thing that I've been thinking about with the idea of opportunity is that space to reflect and to ask those questions, because maybe in our spaces, we're the only ones having these dialogues, especially, as the children get older, but even when they're younger, asking those questions, what's lost here? Or, when we were all the bots, like what's more enriching about that instead of going to the computer? Because depending what their home lives are like or what other exposure they have, like it's pervasive. So just like we might be the only space to protect it, we might be the only space to have these critical conversations, even starting at a young age.
Like a librarian footnote, to echo something that Sarah said about the grapple. Like in libraries, we call this information seeking behavior. And those are skills, those are essential skills. And I think I do fear that that is at risk of being lost. And so I do work, actually, I'm reclassifying my son's school library according to the great lessons to enhance findability for the children, so there's more autonomy in finding. But one thing that strikes me is thinking about abstraction and that work of the elementary child. So thinking about using this cooperative games, I think you called it, coming up with subject terms. So abstract thinking. What's the subject term that represents the aboutness of what I'm looking for in my research? And that the internet and the database architecture behind the internet there is some kind of organization. Information is organized according to metadata. And a lot of that is flawed and biased, but understanding like those skills, I think we don't want to lose those skills of information seeking and finding, being able to retrieve the materials that are relevant to your research, school librarians. To be able to give access so that it's not a query to AI, but rather it's a grappling with what are the subject terms that I need? What are the keywords that I should use for this search? Is this relevant? So that we can, continue that research, progress for the children.
Perfect. Thank you. You made me think. So with the think tank, the Innovation Labs classroom, where we recreated a whole classroom, there was a Padlet, and the Padlet linked to the 11 people in the team had all generously shared the materials they use in their own classroom. There's a video of Sarah talking, but there's a video of Desislava Stoeva talking. She is from Bulgaria, Sofia University, and she has the early childhood technology shelf. So she actually shows what the shelf looks like, and then basically how to present technology ideas without using technology. So this is kind of blends everything together. We're stewards of the classroom. If you saw her technology shelf, you wouldn't know.
And this is kind of funny, I think, anyway. Okay, first of all, I have to start off and say, Bodine, reference librarians are my favorite people on the planet. It is just built into their DNA. Magical, magical people. Absolutely love it. So on the TikTok, I know, right? I'm a bifurcated person. I've got the junkie over here, and here I am saying all this other stuff. Okay. I saw a woman who was talking about how she has gone back to writing research papers. Now, I'm a literature major. I love research papers. And I thought, I do a lot of time reading, like to get information. I'm sure this is a whole group of people who do that. I don't think I'm special. I'm just saying that I do a lot of reading, but it hasn't been since I finished my graduate degree. I haven't written a research paper, like the whole process. And I thought to myself, this is something I'm going to do. And for people who are in academia and that's all you do with your lives, sorry about your luck. This idea won't help you at all. But for the rest of us, I think it would be a good exercise to go back and pick any topic that you're passionate about and see how Googling and over involvement with quick answers and not making space for grappling has impacted our ability to pull information together like we used to. So I myself am going to do that. If anybody else does that, please reach out to me and let me know. I would be very fascinated to find out what people discover in that. Oh, a grapple group. I love it.
Say something about what Bodine said. I want to agree, talking about those skills, those research skills that we want to be nurturing in young children. So for Natasha and I, language and literacy has been our focus over the last 2 decades of our work. And we know through our work that language, a home language, when children are learning more than one language, your home language can be lost in one generation. Do we learn our ability to learn if we turn things over? So this whole thing around research skills, I think, is really important. What are the skills we want to maintain? And then what are the tools we want to support our children in using? But as I said, I just really think that these deserve these kinds of conversations. And thank you, Kate. I'm sure you're probably going to close us out now, but
thank you. Thank you. It's extraordinary being with you all. And the fact that we can, I mean, grace and courtesy always, but the fact that we can have these big conversations and it not make it mean anything, like it's just, okay, it's just the next thing. And we have this, I was talking the other day, we have this reset button as Montessorians. We can like reset, okay, back to reality, back to our senses. We seem to have some special button implanted at birth. I don't know what's happened. So may we return to our classrooms, not with all the answers, but with courage, clarity, and connection. May the child remain at the center and our hearts remain open to what is unfolding. And on a personal note, when I use AI, I have learned to be vulnerable, emotional, messy, careless, thoughtless, because the more human I am, the better the results. If you go in as a user, you will get a user response. If you go in with please and thank you and I love you and that's made a difference and gosh, I was really struggling with that, AI will rise and mirror you. It's just a mirror. So thank you so much. And yeah, it's been a real pleasure and honor. And thank you to our authors and thank you for all the incredible people on the call. We know that you're all talented and wise and we'll come to your session next.